On for our segment via Skype, the former congressman from Maryland's 6th District. He's a Democratic candidate for president, John Delaney. Welcome, John. Oh, we don't hear you. Your Skype is not, your Skype is muted.
Capitalism there, Harry.
Are you there?
Are you there?
Yeah, you were muted.
There you go.
There you are.
So
I enjoyed your defense of capitalism there.
I enjoy that you, as a Democratic candidate, are agreeing with my defense.
Well,
I was an entrepreneur before I ran for Congress. I started 2 businesses. I took them both public on the New York Stock Exchange. I created thousands of jobs. So I totally believe in the power of kind of free market innovation.
with limitations, I hope.
Well, see, this is the way I look at it. I mean, we are a free market economy and a free market country, but we have strong social programs, or at least we used to historically. And that in many ways has been the brilliance of this country, which is we allowed capitalism to work its magic, which is to create jobs and innovate. But then we kind of moderated it with real programs that help people, safety net, great infrastructure, great public schools, workers' rights, et cetera. And in the last couple of decades, we stopped doing the second half. And that's been our problem.
Absolutely. We agree on that. So, John, you were actually the first Democrat to announce your candidacy for president in the 2020 election. What made you decide to run?
Well, listen, I think I'm the right person for the job based on my experience. I was raised in a blue-collar family. I became a successful entrepreneur, and then I've been serving in the Congress of the United States. I'm about solving problems, right? I'm about finding a way to make sure everyone gets health care in this country, and I believe I can do it. I'm about doing things that can actually get done to combat climate change. And I believe in my first year as president, my plan can actually get done. And so I think what we need to do in our nation is we need to have someone restore this notion of common purpose, that we're all in this together, and actually lead the country in a discussion about some of the things we agree with each other on and actually get real things done that matter in the lives of our citizens. And also the kind of things that allow us to rethink our future. The generation of young Americans today is going to be the first generation that doesn't do better than their parents. I mean, that's just it's a tragedy what's happening in the kind of world we're leaving the next generation. My kids, everyone's kids out there. So, I want to be the president that can actually lead us, bring us together, get real things done, restore a sense of honesty and integrity and decency to the president, and inspire us to rethink our future so that it's better than our past, like it had always been. But right now, it doesn't look that way.
So, John, I want to know about, you said publicly, and I agree with this, that if Democrats are trying to expend political capital on the Electoral College, this is a waste of time. Why did you say that, and did you get a lot of pushback from your Democratic colleagues?
I did get some pushback, but again, it's probably my nature, Carrie, is that I'm a real problem solver, and I want us to focus on the things that really matter. Obviously, if I was starting everything from scratch, right, the design of our government, I wouldn't have the Electoral College, right? So I have my own issues with it, just like other people do. But I also know it's incredibly hard to change it. You either need a constitutional amendment or you need some new pact with all the states. And that's incredibly hard to do. And I would much rather focus on lowering drug prices, creating universal pre-K, putting in place a carbon tax so that we deal with climate change, doing things to improve the Affordable Care Act and then create a way for us to get universal health care. I think I would much rather put my shoulder behind those things than engaging in this kind of intellectual debate about the Electoral College, which sounds to me like continuing what we've done for the last 20 years, which is to argue about a bunch of stuff and not get anything done.
Right. Well, so John,
there's a lot of argument and there's a lot of intellectual debate, and we can have that. And yes. I agree with you in terms of priorities, but in order to get, I would argue, those priorities done, would you not say that having a system where one vote, one person would be the norm, would be the rule of law, would be how our elections are held, would actually help you achieve that? Because the reality is that most people do want a Democratic president. I mean, 3 million more people voted for Hillary Clinton, and we would be much closer to getting those things that you listed done if we actually had a Democrat in office.
Absolutely. Well, we'd absolutely get those things done if we had a Democratic president, right? But what we're talking about here is changing the Electoral College. And again, as I said, if I was starting from scratch, if you were to ask me, do I like the Electoral College system? My answer is no. if I could wave a magic wand and change it, and would I do one, give everyone a vote and have it be more direct democracy on choosing our president? Absolutely. But I actually think I can do the kind of things I want to do, right? Expand the earned income tax credit, create universal health care, put a carbon tax in place, increase the Department of Energy research budget so that we actually can start innovating our way out of climate change. I believe that those are the things we should be focused on. I also think we should get rid of gerrymandering. We should do things to roll back the effects of Citizens United. We should pass the Voting Rights Act to stop these terrible voter suppression efforts that are going on in our country. Those things are achievable, I think, potentially in the short term if we get the right federal government in place and have the right leader. And those things will start immediately making an impact on our democracy and making it more representative of the American people. I have no issue with, as president, leading a conversation about some of these bigger changes like, changing the Electoral College system. But if that requires a constitutional amendment, I'd also like to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed. So, there's a lot of things I'd like to do through a constitutional amendment. This is one of them, but we all know how hard those are to do. It involves the small states
I just think that the more
agreeing to give up something that benefits them.
Sure. Every time I hear a Democrat say, well, 3 million more votes, I'm just like, this is trying to delegitimize the process, and this is what's in our Constitution, and I just think that it's a waste of time because we're not getting stuff done. Anyway, I want to move on to another question for you about the Electoral College, the DNC electoral system, I should say. The electoral system, so they are requiring, in order to get on the debate stage, 65,000 donors in 20 states. How many donors do you have today?
Well, we haven't disclosed the exact number because when that thing was dropped on us about called 3 weeks ago or so, it kind of came out of nowhere. And so we've been working really hard to get our number. We believe we're going to get our number, but we don't disclose on a daily basis how many we have. We may do that at some point, but we're making tremendous progress. We've seen huge surge in our small dollar donors. We got a really interesting program that we're running. It's called the Delaney Debate Challenge. And it says for every person who gives us $1, just $1, that I will give $2 to a charity of their choice. And there's 11 or 12 of them to choose from. So it's kind of a no-brainer for people. They give me $1. They help get me on the debate stage. They help get some of my, very innovative ideas. There's been a bunch of articles in the Post and the Financial Times the last couple of days about how I have the best ideas out there. And then $2 go to a charity in their name, and they get to choose the charity.
John, we know that Planned Parenthood is one of those charities, and that's a very, very divisive. As a pro-life person, I'm very, very turned off by the prospect of someone using my donation to fund this. They create over 300,000 abortions every year. And so when Hillary Clinton said that for abortion it should be safe, legal, and rare, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of abortions.
In a country of 365 million, that's pretty rare, I would say. What percentage is that?
As a percentage of live pregnancies, so live births, there are about 3 million births, so that's about 10%. I mean, that's pretty common. It's pretty common versus the number of live births.
Right, the number of abortions have been going down.
No, but still, that's hundreds of thousands of lives that are snuffed out, and you would be going to subsidize this. Couldn't you choose a less polarizing charity?
Well, again, you have right now 11 charities to choose from. So if you were to give me $1, then you obviously wouldn't select that charity. You would select some other, St. Jude's Hospital, Wounded Warrior, Environmental Defense Fund, any number of other charities. So if you were to give me $1, your donation and my matching donation will not go to that charity. So we just simply put up a broad range of organizations that reflect different people's priorities. That's obviously not a priority for you. I understand that. I totally respect that. This is an issue that we have deep disagreements on in this country. I tend to be more respectful about those disagreements than I think most people. So for you, obviously, if you were to give me $1, you would choose one of the other 10 or 11 charities, not that one. And that's why we created all these options.
So do you think it's fair that the Democratic Party is making you get 65,000 donors? Do you think it's fundamentally unfair? And also, do you think it's encouraging more money in politics?
I find it ironic that one of the standards to be on the Democratic Party's debate stage is a money standard, right? So I think there's kind of an irony in that, if you will.
What should be the standard, in your opinion?
As I and a lot of Democrats, we always talk about too much money in politics, and this is kind of a money standard. So there's an irony to that. I wouldn't use the word unfair. And the reason I say that is I'm running to be president of the United States. I'm running as someone who can solve problems and get things done. This, when it was announced, was a problem for me because we hadn't focused. You know, I never liked those emails that people send out that say the sky is falling and, you know, give us $3 before midnight, or these, you know, people are going to do terrible things. I never liked those messages. I didn't think they were constructive to trying to bring the country together. So I didn't have as many small dollar donors as other people. So this was a problem. But if I want to be president of the United States, I got to solve problems. And so we're going to solve this problem, and I'm going to get it done. So I don't use the word unfair. I think there's an irony to it, if you will, that, you know, some random number was.
But do you think there should be a standard? Because right now, how many candidates are there? I think it's 16. It's about that have announced. So should you have a debate stage with so many candidates rather than having some kind of parameter in order to?
You should have standards, right? And in the past, the standards were kind of polling. It was a combination of things. The way they did this in the past, they had polling data. They had people who were running legitimate campaigns. In other words, had campaign staff and had infrastructure and were actually campaigning. You know, they often did it based on, you know, if you were a member of Congress or a governor or something like that, you were, you know, obviously a legitimate candidate, so you're on the debate stage. You know, they did it a variety of ways. What's kind of interesting about this is there's a lot of people in social media land, as you know, who have lots of followers. It'll be interesting to see if some, people who can get 65,000 small dollar donors really easily because they have millions and millions and millions of Instagram followers in Hollywood and media and entertainment, just to kind of play with the process, actually say, well, I'm going to run for president and I'm going to get my small dollar donors and then I'm going to be on the debate stage.
So
you can see that happening, actually.
So you're polling not very high. The other qualification would be to be polling at 1% in at least 3 polls.
Yeah.
And there was a
recent... we'll think we'll get there as well, right? Because they had the first CNN. You know, there's a whole bunch of polls that go on, but not every one of those polls are eligible polls because the DNC also listed which polls count. And for example, they had one in Iowa the other day, which was an eligible poll. It was the CNN Des Moines Register poll. And we met the standard there. So we think we'll meet that standard too. But I'm always one of these folks that believe you hope for the best and prepare for the worst. So, you know, I want to make sure we meet it both ways.
Sure. So you're a white man, middle-aged. So is this a problem for you? I mean, has the Democratic Party become so polarized and so focused on gender and race that you don't have a chance, even though you have qualifications?
No, I don't believe that's a problem. What I do think has happened, which I think is actually positive in the Democratic Party, is that we now represent the country, right? So if you look at our field, it is diverse. It is a mix of men and women. We've got some younger candidates. We've got some candidates who are a little older. And so it's fairly reflective of the American people. And I think the Democratic primary voters are going to pick the best leader. And I don't think they're actually going to make their choices. Some people may, but I don't think a lot of people will make their choices at the end of the day based on identity. And I think that's the way it should be. So I'm 55 years old. If I was running for president as a white man at 55 years old 30 years ago, I would probably have a significant advantage relative to my competitors who are women and people of color. I don't have that today. And that's exactly the way it should be. So that's kind of how I think about it.
John, I don't know if you've thought about this question, maybe you have, but if you don't end up getting the nomination, whose vice presidential pick would you want to be?
Well, I'm planning on getting the nomination. I'm sure you're not surprised by that answer. And so I can't really speculate about hypotheticals that I view as low probabilities.
All right. Well, John Delaney, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
All right. We'll have you back.
Great.
Thank you.